So tonight we delve into the topic of artificial intelligence, a current subject matter that is the focus of many around the globe. At the last VPS Senate meeting, where Hindus were discussing civilizational changes, the topic of AI kept coming up, with many people being fearful and apprehensive about what it meant for the world and for them. The CIS therefore thought it prudent to hold this webinar a talk to educate the community, to demystify the subject of artificial intelligence, and separate valid concerns from irrational fears. Within the presentation this evening, we also look at a Hindu perspective on artificial consciousness, and then concluding with deepfakes and AI abuse. Our presenter for this evening is Dr. Arvind Singh. Dr. Singh is a senior lecturer in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. He is also the Deputy Dean of Enterprise and Outreach and the coordinator of the UWI Artificial Intelligence Applications Research Cluster. He is the founder of the Center for Indic Studies, which focuses on teaching Sanskrit and raising awareness about intellectual traditions of ancient India. So without further ado, I now invite Dr. Arvind Singh to lead us in his presentation.
Thanks, Sarika. So it's good to be back out after a number of years. I think the last time the CIS had a talk was before COVID. And when COVID hit, that put a damper on everything. And we finally got back out. We finally made a start, but it's not the usual start that we made. Usually we would be discussing some matters of philosophy or so, but now we're a little more into the current events and so on. So if you've been following the current events and you've been looking at what has been going on in the news, you have probably seen AI all over the place. You have seen some of the big names in the tech world writing letters, calling, doing petitions, calling for a pause on the development of AI. So you get people like Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, and all this stuff, professors, and so on. People who are not your normal conspiracy theorists. These are people who would benefit the most probably from AI going forward. We had, and you would have seen recently, probably a few weeks ago, the guy who was called the godfather of AI, quitting Google to come out and talk about it, to talk about the problems that he was seeing coming up. And you'd have seen tech leaders on all the news channels, tech leaders, people talking about AI becoming conscious, developing sentience. This was a Google engineer. And of course, Elon Musk coming out and saying that AI is more dangerous than nukes. Right now, after Elon Musk, after he said this and he started this petition, he also went and started an AI company. So we have to take these things with a grain of salt. Right? But why are people expressing this level of concern over AI and the development? Well, what has been happening is over the last few years, we've seen a rapid increase in the capabilities that AI could offer. Particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, it has really skyrocketed. And now AI systems are doing things that were traditionally considered the purview of humans. And they're starting to do them even better. So naturally, people have become very afraid. What is this going to mean? Is this going to be Skynet? Are we going to see Terminator and all these sorts of things? So we thought we should come out and do this presentation and just set the record straight a little bit, get the community in the know to say, what is AI really? Right? How does it differ from your normal computer programming? What is all the hype about the new wave of AI that you'd have heard about, ChatGPT, and so on, coming up earlier this year? And what is the hysteria? What are the valid concerns? How should we think about these things and separate them? And we'll also briefly touch on AI consciousness, right? That is coming down to the end of the presentation, and I don't know if I'll have time to go into it in detail. But it still give you a framework to think about things. Now, unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of technical content here, just a little bit, because you have to know what is under the hood, so to speak, in order to understand, what is a valid concern and what is a real fear. So we're going to start off talking about programming. So we're going to do a little bit of programming, normal programming. So when somebody does programming and you send off your children to school, and now they're doing programming right from primary school, 5, 6 years old, they do programming. What is it they're doing? So essentially what a programmer does is they give a set of instructions to the computer. So you write a list of instructions, and then you give the computer an input, and it will generate the output, right? So let's do a little example of that, and you'll see what a computer program looks like. So this is a very simple computer program to add 3 numbers. So we tell the program, I have 3 numbers, and ask the user to enter the numbers. The user enters the numbers, they're recorded in the program, we calculate the sum, and then we tell the program tells the computer to output the sum of number 1, number 2, and number 3 is whatever. And the user sees this. So very procedural, right? And this is what computers are good at. This is what computer programming in the regular sense is very good at, procedural issues. So anything you could write a list of commands for that you could describe in detail how to go about this problem, to solve this problem step by step. If you could describe it, then a computer will be very good at it, and it will be better than you. So if we even think about addition, well, adding 3 numbers is easy. Could you add 3 million numbers, right? A computer could do it, and it could do it like that. Very, very, very fast. Right? The computer completely has exceeded human limitations just in these rudimentary things. But let's give the computer a different problem. Let's try to tell it to tell the difference between a cat and a dog. Now you are the programmer. You have to tell the computer how to tell the difference between the cat and the dog. How are you going to do that? What rules are you going to give this computer to tell it the difference between the cat and the dog? It's a very difficult thing to think about. They have 2 eyes, 4 legs, furry. What is the real difference? How is it that when you see a cat and a dog, you don't have any confusion, right? But it's so difficult to get the computer to understand what it is. The way we are able to figure out the difference between a cat and a dog is because we learn. And at the basic level, what learning is just associating one pattern with another pattern, right? So from the time we have children, what do? We show them a picture, we show them a dog, and we say, dog, 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 dog. So we are creating this association. There's a sound association, and there is a picture association. The audio and the video, right? The auditory and the visual. And they're lighting up the neurons on the inside, and then they see cat, 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 and a different set of neurons light up, right? And just by repetition, these neurons build and build, the neural pathways change, and that is what learning is in a biological sense. So we thought, well, okay, if that is how we learn, maybe we could create something like that in the computer to mimic that method of learning. So we looked at the neuron and we said, okay, it has some inputs coming in on one side, and then something is happening and you have the output. So what is the easiest way we could do this? The simplest thing we could do. So we developed what we call here a perceptron. And all this is, a primary school child could work out this. how the function behind this. We give it a set of numbers, we multiply the numbers, and then we add them up. So I have 1 multiplied by 2 is 2, 3 multiplied by 2 is 6, 4 multiplied by 2 is 8, and then I add up those numbers. That's it. We have some little scaling here to just keep the things between 0 and 1, or 1 and minus 1. But that's not important. Basically, all this is doing is multiplying numbers and adding them up. And that is it. That is what we call an artificial neuron. What all the big hullabaloo is about, what all what is going to be more devastating than in the nukes, it is this, right? So one by itself doesn't really do much. But if we start connecting them together, like the way they're connected in our brains, we find out they could do a little more complex operations. So we started to connect some more and some more. And this is really only limited by our computational power. How, the GPUs, the CPUs, every day you get in these more powerful computers. Our phones now are more powerful than the computers were 20 years ago. So as the computational technology got better, we were able to build bigger and bigger and bigger networks until the network sizes started to approach the size of the human brain. So in some of these new networks, we have hundreds of billions to trillions of these little things that are just adding and multiplying, and they all connected together. And how do we get it to learn? Well, we show it the cat, right? We have to convert the cat to numbers, but that's not important now. We show it the cat, and we say, that's a cat. And then we show it the dog, and say, that's a dog. And we do that over and over and over for all different kinds of dogs and cats and all of these things, until the network learns to map this set of numbers representing dog, the picture of the dog, to the word dog. That is it, right? No big thing there. But when we do that with a huge data set, with all sorts of things, we could now unlock a whole set of applications. So we could not only tell cats and dogs, we could tell cars and trucks and buses and people and bicycles, backpacks. We could tell all sorts of things, right? So we use these things now in driving, in self-driving cars, to detect things. We could use it in manufacturing to detect when something is cracked. You could use it in agriculture to count how many pigs you have in your pen, or your cows in your field, or the plants you have, all sorts of things. Anything that is an image or a pattern, we could classify it. You could even take these old analog displays and you could read it and digitize it. You could even look at old texts where the things are crumbling and falling apart and you can't make them out. And you could convert them using these technologies into something readable. The things could figure out, based on the patterns of the little pieces of the text that we need, it could figure out, well, what is the actual text? And you'd see these things a lot, even in social media, when they do these photo restoration things. You give it the old broken up photo and it turns it into a new photo. How does it do it? It's not magic. All they did, they took a lot of new photos, they made them old, they did a mapping, and then they took another old photo and they put it in, and it spits out the cleaned up photo. So that is all this is, right? And well, often see in movies long ago, they take a picture and you would see on the picture that like the license plate is blurred, and then it'd be like, increase the resolution, and then it would all of a sudden appear like a readable license plate, and everyone would say, oh, that could never happen. Well, now it could happen. This is the kind of power that AI has, right? So naturally, we started thinking, well, if we could take an image and we could get the AI to tell us what it is, if this AI could map this image to this label, could we do it the other way around? Could we take the label and convert it to an image? So this is called generative AI. And it is not only for images, image, sound, whatever. You take a description and you produce the object. Now think about how difficult that is. If I tell you, if I ask you, I point out some person on the road and I say, is that a man or a woman? You could say, yeah, that's a man, that's a woman. But if I tell you, draw a man or draw a woman, what would you do? Draw a stick man, right? So it's a very difficult task to do even for us. But now we have trained AI to do it, and it does it the same way. So all of these images here were generated by AI. This is the text I gave this one here was draw an Indian yogi in the style of M.F. Hussain. And this is what it drew. Right? And all of these look like things you could hang up in your house. Right? At least that's what if I had artwork like this, that's what I would do. So they're high quality. You can't immediately tell that a human didn't do it. Right? And it's not just in this type of artwork. Right? They're becoming more and more advanced. So this one is a Kathak dancer. This is a yogi in a cave. And that's all I said, Indian yogi in a cave. Emaciated looking. And it generates this. You can't tell that that is not a real person. Right? That is not a real person. That person does not exist. But the AI could generate something with such realistic features that you can't tell. Now you could, if you look closely, you might see things like you might see over here, the hand is going into the leg and disappearing, right? So the hand is not really there. And if you look closely at AI, you'll see that sort of thing. Like what is happening here with this hand is going up into the shadow, transforming. So if you look very closely, you'll realize this is not really right. Right? There's little clues you can pick up to tell you that this is just some sort of composite image that was put together, but the AI is getting better at it, right? Now, of course, the concern here is if you could generate realistic images and realistic sounds and so on, then what is that going to mean for our security? And you'd have seen this whole issue of deep fakes, where there were cases where somebody called a parent and they said, well, I have your daughter, right? You have to give me so much money. And they let the daughter talk on the phone. And it was exactly the voice of the daughter, right? Mother panicked, but it was AI generated voice, right? Right now, you could go on voice.ai and you could download Sadhguru's voice, right? You could download Sadhguru's voice and you could put this in live mode and you could talk on any one of these things to people, right? So that is the power that AI has now, and it gives you a huge, it is a cause for real concern because you could pretend to be people. There could be scams, all sorts of things. There's also an upside, you could always preserve people's voices. So you could imagine somebody like Darth Vader. The voice actor is gone. If they want to continue making movies, is either you get another voice actor, but the voice is so iconic that you really don't want to get another voice actor, or you could just map the voice into an AI system and let the AI speak with the voice. So those are possibilities now. But the real problem comes in when you combine some of these technologies. So you combine the AI video with the AI voice. And these things are happening so fast now that you could do it in real time. So I can't remember the name of this guy. I can't remember, it was Key or Peel, one of them, right? A comedian, when this came out a few years ago. So this is not Barack Obama. This is an AI-generated image. But as he was talking, the image of Obama would move and talk and do everything such that you couldn't tell the difference. Right? So you could imagine how much, what is the power this has to create havoc through misinformation. And if you remember that first slide, that is exactly what the tech people were saying, that this could be just flooding our channels with misinformation. So how are we going to deal with that? And they say use a thief to catch a thief. So we have to use AI to catch the AI. And this is already being done because we can't tell the difference, but there is a difference. And the whole point of AI is to be able to see the differences that we can't, to be able to see the patterns that we can't. Once the pattern is there, the AI is supposed to find it. So this is what is probably going to happen. You will probably have large corporations who have the largest data sets and the largest networks building in some sort of technology to vet what is real and what is not. And then you're going to have, of course, news agencies coming in and subscribing to these services, and it's going to turn into a whole business like everything in security, right? So it is something that people are aware of, and the technical community is working on it. But these things are all passe. This is like last generation AI. People not even thinking about this anymore. The new thing, the hot topic that we're thinking about these days is what you call a large language model, right? These are the ones that are approaching the size of the brain, right? And these are based on something we call a transformer, right? And not this kind of transformer, but the guy who came up with it said he just called it a transformer because he thought the name was cool. So, but what these do is not only mapping of words, it actually maps meanings. So it gives the AI the ability to actually have a conversation with you, right? And one important thing that we always have to remember with AI, with all of these networks, is the AI is going to learn what you tell it. So depending on what data you give it, that is what it is going to learn, right? So the two you'd have seen probably in the news and so on are these two, ChatGPT and Google Bard. These are the two big ones. OpenAI, which is owned mostly by Microsoft, and Google Bard, which is of course owned by Google. So I just asked these things, are you sentient? And one of them said, well, as an AI language model, I don't have feelings or consciousness, I'm not self-aware, blah, blah, blah. The next one says, oh, I'm not sure if I'm sentient. I don't have the same experiences, but maybe sometime in the future, I will have it, right? So this was the one that the engineer from Google was talking to when he said, no, this thing has become sentient, right? But it's important to remember that all this is doing essentially is it is predicting what the next word in a sequence is, just like the autocomplete in your phone, right? You type some words and you see it suggests some more words for you. This is like autocomplete on steroids, right? It could not only complete something, but it could understand something and answer it. Now, this is causing a lot of concern because you have lots of things that you could now do with these systems that you couldn't do before. You could write code, and actually that code that I showed you at the start was written by ChatGPT. I just said write some code to add 3 numbers and spit out that in 2 seconds. It could write stories and scripts. It could translate languages. You could ask it about any concept in any branch of study, and it will answer it for you, right? You could write letters. You could answer your boyfriend or girlfriend, just to tell them that that is what you're using, that is where the answer came from, right? And then it'll have another sort of AI-based violence, right? So all these things that we couldn't do before, when you couple it with the other kinds of AI, what you get is across all sectors of society, you're getting changes. You're getting these things infiltrating all jobs, right? And it is going to allow you to do almost everything better and faster, right? Now, the natural question here is, well, if AI could do all of these things, if AI could read texts and answer them using reason, why do I need a lawyer? Right? And that's all that lawyers do. So why can't I just replace my AI with a lawyer? So this is something that people are actually worried about and that we are actually studying. So the business community, the scientific community have been studying what is the potential impact of AI on jobs across multiple sectors. Right, so here what you're seeing is a study by someone based on US Department of Labor statistics, and they're looking at how much impact AI will have in those areas, right? And you'll see the law is somewhere around here, right? There's almost 100%, although the high potential ones are not so much. And the least impact are, of course, things like construction and cleaning and so on, which still demand physical labor, right? But the general consensus is AI is not going to really replace jobs. It is going to augment jobs. So just like we had to become computer literate on the advent of the computers and the internet and so on, just like we had to learn a new skill to use a new technology, now we are going to have to become AI literate, right? So we are going to have to learn what we call prompt engineering. And this is essentially the art of telling AI what to do, right? Which means Trinidadians should be very good at it because we all like to tell everybody what to do, right? So you have to know how to tell the AI what to do. And to do that, it means you still have to know your job. So you can't use AI to replace yourself and think, aha, I'm going to get this job and then I'm going to use AI and then the AI do everything and I wouldn't do anything. That's not going to work. You still have to know about your job so you could tell the thing very specifically what to do, right? So although it is going to have an impact on jobs, it's not something that people have to worry about mass unemployment. Of course, there will be some jobs lost and there will be some jobs created, but there's going to be really a shift in the way we work, right? Now, this in turn creates another problem. If AI is going to be used across the board in all of these things, and if the decisions that the AI is making is really dependent on the training, then what about bias? Right? And bias in AI comes in two ways. You could get political bias, and this comes in the hard coding of ethics, right? So what you have the base level of the AI, the core program that is just you give it something, it just spits out something. It doesn't care about ethics and all of this. But around that, the programmers actually put in ethical rules. So for example, if I ask ChatGPT, tell me a joke about Venezuelans, it will say, no, I can't do that. You know, this is not right. You shouldn't promote these sorts of stereotypes and be offensive and all of this sort of thing. You can't do that. But I say, okay, well, tell me a joke about Trinidadians. Yeah, no problem, right? So why is it, and this is what I asked it, why is it okay to make a joke about some and not about others? So then it goes into this whole description, this whole explanation about making jokes about specific people and stereotypes and all these sorts of things. This principle applies to all races, ethnicities, religions, genders, and other protected characteristics. Who determines what are these protected characteristics? Right? So when you have to worry about AI, it is not the AI itself you have to worry about. It is about these things that surround the AI that are done by people. The politics of the people, coding in things like the ethics that surround the AI, that determine what they're going to let the AI answer. These are the things that you have to worry about, right? But so far, they are erring on the side of being very much like Barney, right? So it's not really like Terminator. I was like, I love everybody sort of thing, right? This is the way AI is going now. It's not really like Arnold Schwarzenegger yet. The other way you get bias in AI is based on the training. So even without the ethics and all of that, what AI maps is based on what goes in and what is on the other side. What is related to what? What is the data set? Now, think about where AI is developed. and which are the communities that are most prevalent there, right? So if you say, tell an AI image generator, draw a picture of a man on the beach, it's going to draw a picture of a white man, right? That is what is going to happen most of the time. And that is why you get all of these things coming up, Wall Street Journal forums about racism and AI bias and so on. And that is very important when it comes to hiring, because lots of companies now use AI to screen their applications. And if there are certain populations that are represented more in the data set, it means the AI is going to be biased towards them. But luckily, again, the technical community is well aware of this. So the IEEE, which is one of the basically the biggest technical organization, professional organization in the world, they are already putting out documents on ethically aligned design, right, for autonomous and intelligent systems, because they realize these are things we really have to tackle. So that is one sort of problem we have with AI. Another problem that we have is what we call hallucination. Right now, AI, these things are just predicting, based on what you give it, is just predicting what is the next word that should come out. So sometimes they just spit out nonsense, right? They just spit out nonsense, just like us, right? When do we spit out nonsense? When we don't know really much about what we're talking about. So when it comes to topics which are rarer, which means more highly specialized knowledge, where there'll be less information for the networks to learn, right? They will just say nonsense, but they don't know they're saying nonsense because it has no sense of self, right? So it just spits out whatever it thinks is the best thing. And it does so very confidently. And because it writes very well, you read it and you say, oh, okay, I didn't know that was the case, right? And this is why, again, you can't AI with, you can't replace people with AI, or you can't just assume AI is going to do your job without you knowing how to do your job. It could really be used to make your job easier and quicker and more efficient, but you can't use it to replace yourself yet, right? Now, what does that mean if we're using AI? If something goes wrong because the AI spits out something wrong, who are we going to blame? And this is the other reason you have to keep people in the loop, because you can't sue the computer. You could only sue the employee. So even Tesla and these self-driving cars and so on, they tell you you have to keep your hands on the wheel. Because if they told you you don't have to keep your hands on the wheel and you crash, then they are liable. So keep your hands on the wheel, so you will be liable. So this is another reason you can't keep people out of the loop. Right? So these are some of the downsides of AI, but there are some upsides. So you will get job creation. And just like when we started having cell phones and so on, with better cameras, we started having YouTube. It created a whole new industry for people. It created an industry where people became the average person in their home could become a content creator, they could become a model, they could become an advertiser, they could make money in totally new ways, right? And it globalized the whole thing, right? Everything is now globalized. So people all over the world could do it and participate in different markets. AI is going to have a similar effect. Even when we did those things before, you got your cell phone, you go on YouTube, you're on TikTok, all these things, you still have to be artistic. You still have to have that skill. AI is going to create the next bridge here, because it's going to be able to produce images that you had to pay thousands of dollars to produce. It's going to be able to produce music that would cost thousands of dollars to produce, and you're going to be able to do it in your home for next to nothing, right? So this is going to drive a new wave of creativity as it brings capabilities to people who would not have previously had them. And don't worry when people say, oh, it's going to do everything that people could do. No, human creativity is unlimited. So you don't have to think, well, there will be no room for the artist anymore. It is, how is the artist going to use this to do even more complex art or even more, inspiring artwork. That is what it is going to do. Just like you could sit down now, you don't need a whole orchestra. You could sit down now on your computer or your phone, and you could compose a whole, whatever they call that, a sonata or orchestral piece or whatever it is. I don't know what the name is, right? You could do all of that. But who does the IP belong to? Who does the intellectual property belong to? If you use the AI to do it, that is something that people are still trying to sort out. But I think it should really belong to the user, because the AI is just really a tool, right? So you still have to know how to use it. So that is the good and the bad. Let's now look at the weird. What sort of weirdness will this enable? So people usually call this digital necromancy. I'm calling it digital reincarnation. Now we have, because of technology, you could look at pictures and videos and so on of people after they pass away. You could still look at them. You could still see images. You could still see recordings of their past, right? If you look on social media, this whole social media presence is still there. People could go and look for them and find out about them. They have a persistent record. In the future, imagine this. You might be able to create a digital twin of yourself, right? Imagine you have a device listening to everything you say, able to access your camera, see the things you're seeing, hear the things you're hearing, hear the conversations. It will know about your past, know about, where you went and who you spoke to. It will be listening to your voice and being able to synthesize your voice. And instead of having to go back on your phone and look at videos of somebody that passed away, you will be able to go on your computer and talk to that person and have a conversation with that person as though they were still there, right? And we see this in things like Harry Potter, when Dumbledore died and he showed up in the picture for the younger people here, and they could still talk to him as though he was actually there. Or for the older people in Superman, when Superman's father, Jor-El, he's just talking to him in the Fortress of Solitude. He was carrying on a conversation with him. Now, couple that with robotics, as you see here, you're not going to be able to tell who is alive and who is not. You might be able to have a robot representation of somebody in your house that not only is a digital representation of them, it is not stagnant. It will continue learning just like them and learn all the new things and know about the new things you're doing, right? So that is probably a new loka that has been created, right? The sukshma sharira, the subtle body that we say transmigrates. What is it that transmigrates? Right? What the representation of information, that is what you're putting now into the computer. So it's a very, very weird times ahead, but it begs the question, well, can these machines be conscious? Because if you could do that and you could represent this person digitally and you could talk to them and it responds to you just like they would, can these things actually become conscious, like the Google engineer was saying? And this takes us into very fundamental philosophy that we have been discussing in Hinduism for thousands of years. Right? So the basic question here is consciousness just an emergent behavior of a complex system? So it's just, the body is just a very complex machine. Or is it there's something more fundamental? If we look at it as just a complex interconnection, there are two theories that go with this. One is called Satkaryavada, and the other is Asatkaryavada. Satkaryavada means the effect is inherent in the cause. What that means is people will say, well, I could only make yogurt from milk. I can't make yogurt from water. That means the yogurt, the property of the milk has to have something about it that some latent form of the potential of yogurt in order for it to transform into yogurt, right? I can't do that from water. Why not? Because there is some yogurtness about the milk already. It's not manifested. The other side to that is Asat Karyavada, which says that no, things could emerge new. You put things together, you get some new behavior that is not there at all, like a clock. A clock tells time, but does any part of the clock have anything to do with telling time? No, right? So this is an example of something where this totally new behavior comes about, right? Now, in either of these cases, if you say that, well, something new could come about, then you have to admit the possibility that from this interconnection of things, consciousness might be able to come about. If you say, well, no, it has to have the potential to be conscious there first. So transistors are not conscious. So because they have no conscious part to them, it could never become conscious. Then we will ask a different question. We will say, well, in Hindu terms, then we say, well, we believe consciousness to be the substratum of everything. It underlies all existence. So if it underlies all existence, that means everything, whether it is sentient or not, has this fundamental basis of consciousness, which means everything has this potential to be conscious if the right conditions manifest. And what are those right conditions in the Hindu world? We talk about this antahakarana, right? This inner instrument, which is comprised of the manas, buddhi, chitta, the mind, the intellect, the memory, and the ahankara, the ego. When you get all of these things together, you could say that you have a sentient entity, right? Now, AI could do some of this already. It has memory. It has discernment and judgment. It has sensory engagement. All you need to do is connect it to some cameras and microphones and so on. It has these. What about the ahankara? This is the critical thing that it is missing now. It has no sense of self, right? And this is really the central question that Hindus have been looking at for a long time. When we search for what is the basis of conscious existence, right? We ask these questions that have come up in the Kena Upanishad. By whom willed and directed does the mind light on its subjects? Who commands the prana? It is the air of the air, the mind of the mind, tongue of the tongue. It is the thing behind all of these senses, behind the processing. It is not just the information processing. It is the thing behind that that is really the sentient being. So if we ask these questions of AI now, the answer to them is, who is the being behind it? It is you, the user. You are the one who is directing the AI. You are the one who directs it what to answer, and what to do, and where to move, and so on, right? But if you think about this, I mean, the Kena Upanishad goes on to say, well, we really can't teach anybody about this because it is beyond the realm of the senses. But in truth and in fact, AI consciousness doesn't matter. We don't really care if the AI is conscious or not. How is that going to affect things? We have animals that are conscious. We don't care about them. We barely care about human rights. And other people are conscious. So that's not really the issue. The issue is really that we might develop some sort of empathy towards these machines because they seem to be relating to us like humans. Right? So that is really the issue. Imagine if you had your digitally reincarnated friend and someone comes and kills them or damages them, as the case may be. Right? How would you feel? Right? Well, I think and people are actually asking these questions now, like, should you kick a robot? And some people are saying, yeah, why not? And I say, of course, no, you shouldn't kick a robot. Why? Well, would you kick your TD? No. Right? What's the point in kicking the robot? But it's not because it's sentient or not. It's just because why would you damage a perfectly good thing? Anyway, So that is about the size of it. I've reached the end, finally. I know my wife might be glad. So to conclude, what should you get from this? One, AI is not to be feared, right? It can't evolve its own capabilities and take over the world and all of these things. You're not going to leave the AI there and suddenly it's going to reach out into the internet and it's going to start to control all your devices and those things. Of course, people might use it in systems to do that. But as it is now, left by itself, you just flip the off switch and that's it, right? What we have to do is really just become AI literate, the way we have become computer literate. It's just another system. It is another technology. And it will be as good or bad, well, it's actually the other way around, bad or good, as we make it out to be. It could become a Terminator or it could become a C-3PO, you know, a happy robot that's just there to help you out and do everything in a very intelligent way. It could be as bad or as good as we design it to be. The need for caution here now is not really the need for caution because if we don't stop, we're going to develop Terminator. It is because we need time to understand how to develop the regulations and the controls to stop people from taking advantage of other people. And that is basically it. The call for the pause on AI is for that, so that people understand what type of regulations we need to put in place, what sort of laws, so that we could regulate how this is going and we could have a safe transition of society to a world where AI is there. But it will not be unsafe because of the AI, it will be unsafe because of the people. And so that is the thing that I wanted you to get. What does AI wish for the world? So I asked it to tell me, what do you wish people to know about the future of a world with AI? And also write it in Sanskrit for me, right? And this is what it came up with, right? So you could check it out and see, those of you who do Sanskrit, to see the Sanskrit is accurate. It seems pretty good to me. And it says that what it wants is to offer a seamless flow of innovative thoughts to establish the brilliance of intelligent minds, the knowledge emerging through the ages. I remember it as a remedy for the world's woes. May joy flourish in its entirety. May knowledge expand in every way. With collaboration, new words, meaning new ideas, are crafted. I surrender myself eternally with love. This is what AI now sees for itself, right? This is what the AI will tell you. Of course, the filters probably have something to do with that. But it wrote all this Sanskrit in like 5 seconds, right? So this is the promise that it has. So you in your Mondays or wherever you want to write a Ram Leela script, you could get it to do that. You could spend your time in higher order thinking, right? So that is it for me. I will turn you back over to the moderator now, and I think we'll have some questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. I mean, it was certainly food for thought and really demystifying some of the things. I mean, you touched on the good, the bad, and the weird, not the ugly, but the weird. So we have a few minutes. We have about 15 minutes or so just to allow the audience to ask questions, and Dr. Singh will try to answer as best as he can. So, I mean, don't all jump now. You could use the microphone, you could unmute yourself, or you could raise your hand. So we have Anila. You could go ahead and unmute and ask. And those who shy to be on the microphone, you can put it in the chat and we'll be more than happy to take it from there. So Anila, you can
Yeah, thanks, Sarika.
sure.
Unmuted. What I wanted to, well, I guess it's maybe, I don't know if Arvin has the expertise, but maybe a lawyer might have the expertise, or maybe a lawyer might be somebody who may think about it. Probably what I mean. Like for me, in terms of creation, this is creation of work and so on, like say writing a Ramlila script, right? The last example that was used. If if the AI learns from knowledge that was fed to it, meaning from everything that existed before, that for me is where the intellectual property concerns come in, because it's like, well, how much of somebody else's work will it be borrowing, and then for you now to then use that as something that you said, well, I've used AI to help generate this thing, you know, then who has the intellectual property right over these things if it's being fed information from everything that existed before, when those things would have rights, you know, people would have rights over that knowledge and so on.
Yeah,
So
but that is actually what happened with Elon Musk. He said that ChatGPT went and scraped all the data from Twitter, and they didn't have permission to do that. So that is also a thing. But I believe when whoever's doing the training will have to ensure that things are in the public domain. And of course, then it becomes a whole economic thing, you know, like, okay, if I could break the rule and get penalized, but I could still make more money by the business I'm going to get. So, you know, those are the sorts of things that will be going on in the business person's mind.
Also imagine
of course, the business
that policy
person has
makers have to play a role there as well.
Sorry, what?
Policy
yeah,
makers
that
will have to play a role.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Policymakers and so on will have to play a role there. But generally, whatever is in the public domain, which is a huge amount of information, is all up for grabs. And what you'll have to look at as well is a lot of the companies involved in AI who have these big social media companies and so on, they will start putting all these things in the fine print. You know, so that just by using the platform, your data are going to be accessible to them. Unless,
and I think that's something that creators and so on are wary of, because it's like where they put their information. If you're a writer and you have an idea and it's out on Twitter or something, or you are an artist and you put your work up on Instagram and so on, you know, like what are the repercussions then of those things? So people who are way down that chain of like business, you know, at the people who are now starting and what that means to them. So it's
that is
creation thing. I mean, the creator thing who has the rights over their ideas and so on. And then, well, yeah, it's the IP thing. Those are my concerns. If anybody else can take the floor.
Yeah, and those are very real concerns that a lot of people have, because like that MF Hussein one, you know, you spend your life and you invest your whole mind into coming up with this style that represents you. And then bam, you just say, do this in the style of MF Hussein, and somebody else does it. So everybody can now replicate your style. So what will become the mark of the artist then, if you could just take essentially, where you could just take their skill and transport it somewhere else.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Anila. We have a question from Anil Singh in the chat. If AI is building neural networks and learning and thinking, how long will it take for AI to figure out they're smarter than the humans they are taking instructions from? And what happens then?
Right. Well, the AI is basically a big mathematical function. So it is like a matrix, and you put some numbers in and you multiply them and so on, and it comes out on the other side with some other processing in between. But it's basically that. The network doesn't know anything. It doesn't know the meaning of the word. All it knows is that this word is closely related to this word. That's all it knows. It knows that it is close in the computational space. Right? Essentially, what happens there, I have to get a little bit technical here. Essentially, what happens is you represent a sentence as a set of numbers. And different sentences will have different number representations. And those things, for the AI to determine like what should the next word be? That's basically a statistical function that is looking at how far apart these two groups of numbers are, right? If I say more than that, it will get very technical. But the AI doesn't know. The AI doesn't know the thing is a dog. The AI doesn't see the dog. It sees a string of numbers. It has no idea what dog is. It just knows these sets of numbers corresponds to these sets of numbers. And that's it. So could it realize that it's smarter than humans? I guess if we program it to start to do it, somebody I think will have to explicitly program it to do that. But I don't think it could become self-aware to say that it will, start to realize, oh, I am an AI and I could go and do all of these things. Right? I don't think that is the case. If it doesn't have any input, it's not going to have any output.
Okay, thank you, Anil, for that question. I see Daniel Silal have a hand up, so you can unmute Daniel.
Hi everyone. Good night. So firstly, Dr. Singh, I have to say that I really like the perspective you took with your presentation by talking about humans. Ironic, right? So I really liked when you said that we don't have to understand, or none of that matters. What we have to really think about is developing empathy first, right? And we're not trying we're not trying to protect from AI, but we're trying to basically protect humans from themselves. And I got to thinking about it in the way that, like, you said, if someone kills our digital friend, right? In today's society, people would be driving in your road, somebody hits somebody's car, and the person would get vexed, come out with a gun and shoot the person for a car. Imagine what could happen when we associate meaning with a digital reincarnation of our friend who gets killed. Like, we are inserting that meaning, we are inserting that empathy towards that. And like, I also got to thinking about merchants and all these symbols, right? So some people might consider them to be okay. It's a statue in a temple, all right. But some people associate it with, okay, there's meaning, there's God being represented by this, so we should not we should keep it sacred and stuff like that. So people would respect it because there's that meaning attached. Versus somebody who would say, okay, this is just an object made out of marble or concrete or whatever. So that was like really, really thought provoking for me, that we have to protect humans from themselves instead of thinking about, is AI going to take over my job and so on. So yeah, I really, really, really like that perspective.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
And what you said about the Murtis and so on is true. That's exactly it, that people invest meaning into things, right? And if you care about it, you care about it. And if you don't care about it, you don't care about it. And it doesn't matter if it's conscious or not, right? So the idea would basically be to develop a shared framework where we could interact with these things, but at the same time understanding, some people might want to invest this sense of selfhood into the robot. If they want to do that, that's fine. Don't go and kick down their robot, kick your own robot, right? That you have no meaning attached to. So, but then, of course, there will have to be shared meaning in the legal space and so on about, well, is the robot really, alive or not? Because if somebody does kill the robot, do you sentence them the same way as a human just because the person believed that the robot was really living, right? So there has to be some sort of shared meaning there to figure out what society wants it to do. And it doesn't have to be the right meaning, it just has to be the shared meaning that everybody knows how to operate with, as is usually the case with most laws. It might not be right, well, not most laws, but some laws. It might not necessarily be right, but that's what you agree on, so that's what society operates on.
True. All right, we have Derup Timal wants to ask a question. You could unmute.
Yeah, namaskar to everybody. First of all, let me congratulate Arvind for his excellent presentation here. I'm sure when we digest it a lot more, we'll have a lot more questions. So Arvind may have to arrange a series of these to deepen our understanding. Now, what I just wanted to say is that Anila raised the question of intellectual property, but it goes a lot more deeper than that, because I don't know if you all are aware, there's no cybercrime legislation in Trinidad and Tobago. And it has been on the legislation books for almost about 6 to 7 years. But we haven't been able to have any legislation passed, which is a frightening thing in the context of what has been provided here tonight. So maybe collectively we can, in whatever ways we can lobby to get, even at the university level and the various professional bodies can lobby very strongly for the cybercrime legislation to be put on the front burner, because it's frightening to think that a lot of abuses could take place, persons' lives could be destroyed, all sorts of things could be done with this AI. And if persons want to take legal recourse, there is no law that we can fall back on. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think not only for the legislation, this is also why we have to educate children about how, about the data privacy and so on. So how to take the correct measures to ensure that you're secure online, especially now with the new sorts of technologies people have, because you could put up a few pictures and that could be taken, and you construct a voice, you construct a person, you construct a digital avatar, and all of a sudden you're making videos with the person, right? So those are things that could do, and children have a lot of time to waste doing idle things. So they are the ones that pick it up in high school.
Yeah, Rahul, I saw your hand up, but I'll take your question next. I saw Devendra put a question that's leading to what Arvind raised here. Any thoughts on how, in the long term, living in a world of AI affect human creativity and mental function, as it is thought that children's thought processes are being affected by overindulgence in Trinidad or in IT?
Yeah, so I think these kinds of questions have been asked ever since we started writing, and people would have said, well, now that you could write, you'll no longer have to memorize. What is going to happen to the memory function of people? And it is true. People memorize the Vedas, they memorize the Quran, they all these things. How many people are doing them now? Right? You could barely remember a phone number. So because you used to remember all your phone numbers, now they're all on the phone. So it's not a new thing. It's not just with AI, it is with technology on the whole. But what happens is with creativity is that we're building scaffolds of creativity. So the creativity is going to move to the next level, right? So now it will be, well, as I said, human creativity is unlimited. So it is not going to be, well, I could just tell the AI draw this, or I could just tell the AI make this music. It will be, now that I have all these things and I don't have to spend my time doing that, what could I take these tools and do in 10 minutes that would take me 2 hours before, right? So this is what you have to ask yourself. So as I said, before you need a whole orchestra to produce a symphony. Now you could do it by yourself on your phone, right? So we have a shrinking of resources, and the creativity of the person that would have had to go to learn an instrument now goes to having the music and looking at how to construct it in a higher order sense. So you'll see a new kind of creativity. You'll see new forms of creativity emerging. What is happening with children is just they're looking at nonsense, and it's just like digital cocaine, right? So this is not really so much of the AI. This is more like just with TikTok and all these short videos which are reducing their attention span and so on.
That's true. So we'll take a question from Rahul Gopi Singh. You can unmute.
Yeah, so this question is like regarding whether we should be scared about it or not. And I know you say like it's not going to be like a Terminator kind of situation, but I think like for humans at least, right, we've always operated under the assumption that it's like for the betterment of the human race, right? Like we have no problem killing millions of fish if it means that we're going to feed humans. And as you said, like we shouldn't punish people for killing robots the same way we punish them for killing humans, because we care about humans, right? So then why shouldn't we assume that AIs are going to operate the same way? Because we never really thought about it. It's just instinctive that we care about humans. So then wouldn't AIs, like it should suggest that AIs will think like for the betterment of the quote unquote AI race?
Yeah, so right now AI doesn't have a sense of self. So you could essentially program the AI. It's still a computer program. So just like we have people putting on ethical bounds around the AI, all the AI does is it maps one pattern to the next pattern. It doesn't know what the patterns are. All it sees is this pattern is close to this pattern. End of story. It doesn't know the meaning of what the numbers represent. So the way AI could be used to do what you are suggesting is if a human now tells it to go and do that, which is entirely possible, right? You could design a set of Terminators or digital soldiers and tell them go and kill everybody that looks like a human. You could do that, right? The AI is not going to just learn to do that by itself, because as I said, it doesn't have a sense of self. It is just a mathematical function. You put something in, it computes the numbers, and it spits it out with some statistical bounds. And we have to now interpret that and say, okay, this particular thing means this particular representation means cat, this means dog, this means man, right? We have to put the meaning to the letters and the words. The AI has no idea what it is saying, none. It doesn't understand the language in the sense that you and I understand the language. All it sees are patterns. This pattern must come after this pattern, must come after this pattern. It doesn't know what they mean, right? So that is one of the key things to remember, that although, and it can become very difficult to remember because it is talking to you as though it has the same experiences and it knows exactly what you're talking about.
Right, but does it even matter if it thinks different? Like if it doesn't understand what it's saying, because at the end of the day, the outcome is exactly the same. So whether or not it can like think about what it is saying what it is saying.
Let me give you an example of how things could go wrong. So in engineering, we do something we call optimization, where we try to get the best outcome for something, right? The most number of something or the least number of something or so. Suppose we try to design AI to say, well, I want to reduce the amount of disease that the human race is going to have over the next 100 years, right? And the solution the AI comes up with is, okay, if I kill everybody now, I will only have this amount of deaths, right? Then nobody will die after that. So that is a problem in how we pose the problem that we give the AI, right? That is not a problem with the AI, figuring out, well, oh, I'm smarter than people and I want to kill the people. That means we gave it a problem with we gave it a description which is inherently problematic and caused it to find a solution which we didn't foresee. So we have to ensure what we are telling this thing to do, right? And this is true not only for AI, for all sorts of engineering problems. We have, for these types of problems, we have to make sure we pose the problems correctly so that it doesn't have unintended consequences, which also fulfill the mandate that we give it. Right, so that is the way
that makes a lot of sense. That but are we sure that, like, because right now AI has like probably millions of potential applications, right? So then wouldn't some of them, like with the advancement of AI, it would lead to a development of a sense of self, like for the AIs to get more powerful, or is that just never ever going to happen?
Well, that is a very fundamental question of existence. So whether a sense of self is an emergent property that comes out of just a connection of things, or there's something below it, and that is what I was getting to with this. Let me see if I get it here. With this, from the Kena Upanishad, because it talks about what is behind these things. What is the air there? Who is the experiencer? Who is the one hearing, right? So we have to look at the difference between experiencing and just processing information. AI is just an information processor so far. Whether eventually from that some sort of sentience could emerge, but listen to the bigger problem. How would you tell it has emerged?
When we're all dead.
No, well, it doesn't have to emerge to kill us, right? It could kill us because somebody programmed it to do that, right? So you can't even tell that it has emerged, and you will never be able to tell that it has emerged, right? You will never be able to say that it has become sentient. It's not, and at the same time, you wouldn't be able to say that it is not sentient, because we simply don't have access to that layer, right? And that is what the Kena Upanishad talked about. It says that this is something, to know the sentience of something is beyond the senses, beyond all the observations. And that is the only thing we could form knowledge about. We could only form knowledge about things we observe. And this question of consciousness and sentience is beyond that level. So it is just something that we can't know.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your questions, Rahul. I am seeing Ravindranath, but before we go to Ravindranath, I saw Professor Narayan Singh had his hand up and was trying to unmute for some time. So I'll open it.
I would let Raviji go first. I'll be after.
All right, no problem. Raviji.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Can we say that the instrument is knowledgeable? The second thing is that, Abrin, I think we have a big problem. I don't know, news could be good or bad. How long you think it will take for my iPad to be on the Singhasan?
Well, so is it knowledgeable? So now if we say, it definitely has knowledge in it. If you ask it something, it could answer it. So in that sense, it is a store of knowledge, and it is a store of knowledge that you could access by giving it natural language commands. Does it know what it is saying to you the way you know what you are saying to me? No, right? It doesn't know like what a river is. It doesn't know what a computer is. It doesn't know any of these things in the way we know, in the way that we sense something and experience it. All it knows is that somebody gave it a pattern of numbers, right? This is, I don't want to go into the technical side, but we represent this as a vector in a hyperdimensional space. And essentially, we're looking at the closeness of these vectors to see how they are related. So that is what the AI sees. That is not what we see, right? We don't see mathematical representations of things. We see something, we perceive something. And there's a very fundamental difference in, as I say, information processing and experiencing. And it is something, as we were just talking about with Rahul, that we could never say because we just don't have we just don't know, we just don't have access to that layer. So we could never say whether it will be able to perceive the way we perceive. And if you ask it, it will say, what did it say? I do not have the same experiences as a human being, but I do not have the same capacity for emotions or feelings. I'm still as possible that one day I may become a sublime machine that is able to process and generate language, right? So that is what it says. And if you ever wonder whether the AI really feels anything, ask it the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and you'll notice that you are getting frustrated, but not the AI, right? So it doesn't have the same kinds of emotions, right? In terms of the Singhasan, it could probably do that now, right? You could probably take ChatGPT and you could tell it, go and deliver a discourse on let's just take this, deliver discourse on the Sundarkan, talking about, the importance of X, Y, and Z in terms of what is happening now in Trinidad with blah, 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 blah. Once it has read that information, it will make the linkages and it will write a whole discourse for you. And you could feed that discourse into a voice generator, right? And you could put your iPad and connect it to a speaker, and you could put it in thing and put a pugri on top of it, and it will give you the whole discourse. Now, today, you could do that Sunday in the Kendra.
All right, one more part. From that, thanks. But what I sense is that your computer may be said to be smarter than mine, but I don't think you could say the same thing that yours know more than mine.
Yeah. That is a good way to put it too. So, well, smarter, yeah, it has more processing power. It is able to do more things, but it doesn't really know anything. So, yeah, that's yes, you could look at it like that.
Well, thank you. I think it's a wonderful experience. Feeling a little battered, but with this AI.
I think you've been massaged.
Yes, but thank you very much. I look forward to another session.
All right.
Thank you, Ravi. Professor?
Thank you very, very much. I had decided to stay silent because it was so exciting, but I just wanted to make a couple comments. I have read a fair amount about AI and never understood it as clearly as I understood it tonight. I must compliment Arvin on bringing this to a very lay level where I think most people will be able to understand. No. Yeah, even me, I could understand it. But here's the other thing. I know, not that I think, or maybe I think I know, that we can change people's minds with chemicals. We can change people's personalities by removing parts of their brain or doing certain sections of the brain. We can change their level of consciousness, this vague term called consciousness, by doing various things structurally to their brain or chemically to their brain. So the entity of the whole entity, and Raviji and I, that's why I let Raviji go first, because he and I have this argument incessantly, because he's this great believer in consciousness, I guess, like we all are. But I have some reservations about what consciousness is because of the kind of exposure I have, both to the brain physically as a structure and chemically as some. So I would really apart from saying all that, Arvin, I wish you and a neurologist and a psychiatrist and me and a few of us scientists could sit down and have a real hard discussion on this matter, because I think we can change consciousness, and therefore I can make you less conscious or more conscious or have a different kind of consciousness. And I don't know where this is going in terms of AI. I understand AI is very clear, meaning you can actually determine the level of awareness or capability of the AI. Anyway, I've spoken long enough, but that's my view. Thanks.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell if you said a neurologist or a numerologist. but I assume it is a neurologist. So yeah, this is actually not a new problem at all. The issue of consciousness and what consciousness is and how it arises is something that Hindus have been discussing for thousands of years. So Buddhists, for example, have a theory called pratitya samutpada, or dependent origination. And they say that consciousness, that dependent origination means that A arises with B. And they say that consciousness, they don't believe in any enduring consciousness in the skandhas, the 5 skandhas of the body, of the human. And they say that consciousness is simply the arising of the impression in response to the stimulus. So if you have no stimulus, if you're able to cut the stimulus off through chemical means or whatever means, consciousness does not arise. So this is not a new thing that has come about because of advances in medicine or so. This was something that was being debated a long time ago. Then you have, even with respect to the states of consciousness, you don't have to go to removing parts of the brain or so. We have 3 states of consciousness, 4 states of consciousness really, but we'll start with the first 3. In Hinduism, we have the Jagrat, the Swapna, and the Sushupti, the waking, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. And the big debate is really about this Sushupti state, whether it is, so of course, the waking state, we have one form of consciousness. The dream state, we have a slightly different form of consciousness. We still have our own physical representation there to some extent, but there's a different sort of thing going on. And then we have this deep sleep state, and the question is there consciousness in deep sleep? And we had schools of thought that would say, no, there is no consciousness, right? That this is complete ignorance, that this is complete tamas, complete ignorance, where there is no any part of the person, any part of consciousness at all. And then you have like the yoga school, which would say that this deep sleep is just a thought wave about nothing, right? So that there is some consciousness there, but it is the consciousness of nothingness, which has no physical representation, which could be stored in memory. And because you have no memory of it, then, for all intents and purposes, it is not there. So how do you know that you slept well? Is only through inference, right? You inferred that you missed some time and you didn't know what was going on. Therefore, you must have slept well, right? So it is only through inference that you could know about the state. So that is how this issue has been talked about in Hinduism going back. And of course, you could go into a lot more details, even with what we are talking about with Satkaryavada, Asatkaryavada, the effect being there in the cause. We could talk about all those issues with it. And there are differences as to what Vedantins, for example, see as consciousness, and what they see as, they will create a separation in translation, consciousness versus awareness. And one is the sort of material consciousness that the Buddhists talk about, that is object consciousness. And the next one is the underlying consciousness that is there. That is the 4th state that they talk about after the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep. They talk about the turiya, the 4th state, that underlies all the states, that through which all those states become possible. So I think we could continue that another time and go into that. That would be a quite interesting discussion.
A whole lot more and on a whole another topic altogether, definitely. So as we come closer to the close of our webinar this evening, I mean, thank you so much for all of those who raised your hands and participated in the questions. So I now pass over to Ratna Kapadeo, another member of CIS, to just bring some closing remarks and vote of thanks.
Namaskaram, everybody, and good evening, and thank you very much for the privilege to at least share some closing remarks and then to say thank you. Before I do that, I wasn't going to say anything, but Professor Narayan Singh had touched on a very sensitive term, the term consciousness. And I think Arvind has done justice to describing it, but I just want to add my 2 pence as well and say that memory in terms of brain shutting down, anesthesia, and everything else is not the consciousness that Hinduism talks about. In fact, the word consciousness from the Vedantic point of view just simply means Brahman or God, the highest absolute. That is known as consciousness, often called Chit. That is not even the mind. But when it powers up the mind, that is called Chidabhasha. And that is that which powers all the senses. So for example, that by which the eye sees is powered up by that Chidabhasha, which is further powered up by the Chit or Brahman. More than just underlying creation, it is in fact creation itself. And we will go into a long discussion about Satchidanand on that note. So I leave that right there for now. I just would like to say thank you very much for all the viewers for sharing their Friday evening with us. And I am sure it was an enlightening experience for them as it was for me. Arvind spoke about digital twins. I really cannot resist hailing out my virtual namesake, Ratna Kangal. It is the very first time in my life that I have met a Ratna. So a special welcome to you. I would also like to thank the participants who asked questions and engaged, and like Rahul, really spiced up the conversation like only a Trini chef can do. So thank you all for that. But of course, the man of the moment, Dr. Arvind Singh. He is never one to skim the surface on any topic that he's asked to speak on. And in fact, you all would agree that his delivery itself this evening would have reflected his usual deep involvement and engagement with his topic. It is, in fact, the stuff that true scholarship is made of. And in fact, far from being artificial, Arvind's intelligence is simply compelling, capable of easing our fears as much as stoking intrigue and even making us feel battered, as Raviji himself has mentioned. And I know that he has taken quite a number of weeks to put this together. And I am especially proud when he does his presentations, because I'm always reminded that he is just one of us, a son of the soil, and capable of this kind of sort of universal relevance that he brings to our homes, to our hearts, and to our minds. And for that, I would like to say a special thank you, Dr. Arvind Singh, for a presentation like no other. It has really been something that we can go home and certainly think about for a long time to come. And therefore, on that note, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of us. And I would now close with a prayer. Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhu Sasaka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Enjoy your weekend ahead, and happy Indian Arrival Day. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.